I'm going to talk for a few minutes. He's going to talk for a few minutes, and then hopefully we can do. I think this will be mostly valuable as a Q&A because I don't exactly know what you guys want to hear, and so much of what we do is somewhat public anyway. That I think what'll be cool, hopefully, is the different side, the interactive side.
Yeah. So think of your questions now, and please ask anything. And we'll be open about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about yourself.
My name's John. So I run the YouTube channel NYC CNC. I would guess a lot of you probably have watched it. So what I wanted to do was try to talk a little bit different than what the YouTube channel is. So I wanted to bring a product to market my senior year of college. I paid an engineer, we paid machine shops, and we got this prototype back, and we had no idea how to go to Dev 2. We had at this time I didn't know what an end mill was, a Bridgeport was. This is 2005. Long story short, I had a partner, and we decided, pencils down. He actually went to the Navy, and I bought the tag in my Manhattan apartment. And I literally knew nothing about CAD, CAM, tooling, anything. And I thought I would own the machine for a year or two, try to learn enough to talk to engineers and machine shops, and then kind of be done with it. What happened was I fell in love with it, and to keep it relevant to this discussion about Tormachs and small businesses is I wanted a bigger machine and convinced my wife to move out of Manhattan to the suburbs, literally, I'm not joking, to a walkout basement so that we could buy a Tormach. This is before I had any relationship with Tormach. There was like no question. That was the machine I wanted. And so my takeaway for this and thinking about Tormach and small businesses is the tag was great because I was in an apartment and it satisfied that need. But what I love about the Tormach is it was the right machine for me back in 2007 when I still didn't know that much, and it continues to be a great machine for me to this day. And yeah, there are some things I maybe feel like maybe I've outgrown, but it is a great machine. And even now when I'm trying to train the guy Jared that works for me, I would never put him on a 800 inch per minute machine that's going to cost me more for a service repair than my whole Tormach did as I bought it. So go back to my notes here. I'm glad we bought. Fortunately, I got lucky that I got the Tormach when I got it because we were trying to make an auto reset rifle target, and that business did okay. But what ended up happening was about a year into owning the Tormach, we were filming promotional videos of these rifle targets, and so we were machining mounts to put our cameras onto guns. And this is why I love the Tormach. We were doing our own R&D. We were tinkering with the prototypes, and then when we needed to do something like we wanted a GoPro on an AR-15, I was just like, well, we can do that. And we ended up being the first to market with a GoPro AR-15 mount. It's a company called Strikemark that a partner and I had founded. And this went from nothing to something really quick. And so what happened was I had to learn. The Tormach was not just this like fun toy for R&D anymore, but we were running production. So I had a 32 position fixture plate. I would get home from my day job at like 6 or 7, and I would try to get 2 cycles in per night of parts, like 60 parts per night. And that's what forced me to learn really how to have the Tormach be a real machine that made us parts and it made us money. I like it to this day. It's really low maintenance. I was just talking about how I'm going to do my first maintenance video. I bought the machine to make parts, not to be maintenance every day. And I like it because, and this is very, very personal, but I didn't want to, at the time, I didn't want to go into debt when I didn't know what kind of revenue stream I'd be becoming. I didn't want the Tormach to be a burden to me. Now it's different because we're a business, but still, the price point for value was great then, and it's great today.
Yeah, excellent. I've got a lot of the same things that he just said, but I'll give you a quick backstory about myself. I'm John Grimsmo. I have Knife Making Tuesdays on YouTube. We're Grimsmo Knives. We make awesome pocket knives. And but before that, I started out with machining probably about 2007, and I got a Grizzly mini mill, Grizzly lathe, and then slowly converted those to CNC, mostly as a hobby. But I was also super into cars at the time, modifying, welding and making my own parts. So I wanted to have a car business where I would make aftermarket parts for the cars. So that got me into CNC, but still mostly as a hobby thing because I didn't see much market, like how do I make enough parts to make enough money to do this? But So slowly things grew and grew, and I did start making parts, and I did start needing more machinery. And then I got into the knife world through a friend who told me about these custom knives that guys are selling for like $500 or $1,000, and I'm like, really? Because I already know how to CNC stuff, and I can start making those. So the transition from already knowing CNC to making knives was pretty easy for me. So this was 3-4 years ago, back when CNC knives were not super popular yet. There were guys doing it, but nobody was really making a big thing of it. And that's about when I started doing my videos too. So then I started making knives, and just a few, and they started getting really popular. So I needed to make more. So then I was like, I can't do this on my little X2 that only makes one at a time, and it makes it kind of terribly. It can do it, but it's not very good. So I looked into getting the Tormach, and I'd already known about them through all the ads in the machine magazines and all that. And the price point was totally attractive to what I was doing. And as John said, at that point, I could never have afforded anything more, nor would I have needed anything more. Because it's just, it was the right fit at the right time for me, for the Tormach. So I've had it for 3 years now, and as some of you have seen in the YouTube videos, it's been a constant growth progression of making one product, our Norseman knife, and just continually improving it and figuring out the fixturing and the tolerances and the accuracy to be able to make an awesome knife. So for a small business, the Tormach is amazing, because one of the things I like about it is, yes, it's not the fastest, it's not the most powerful machine in the world, but you can crash it all day long and learn, and you're not going to break it. As he said, for maintenance, like, I tightened up the gibs and the ball screws a little bit last year, but that's just to get some extra tolerance out of the thing. As far as maintenance, I don't think I've really broken anything or needed to replace anything major. Mach 3 has given me its share of headaches, but with Path Pilot, they kind of solved that, hopefully. But yeah, like, it as a learning tool, if you're fairly new into it, or if you don't have a lot of demand, a lot of business, you know, a huge machine shop doesn't need 50 Tormachs, they need proper machines. But for all of us starting businesses and learning and practicing and just figuring our lives out, the Tormach is such an amazing fit, because it just works.
We were having breakfast this morning, and we sounded like a bunch of old people. We're like, kids have it so easy these days. Like, when we started, there were no YouTube tutorials. Right. There were like these British guy sprue cam videos that we were trying to like decrypt and figure out how to make parts. And nowadays, with not just our videos, but all the other accessibility, the CAD cam, it's so easy.
Yeah. So, I mean, what else could we talk about? I lost my train of thought. Sorry. Okay, you say something.
I was sort of switching topics. Somebody was asking me about what we do, and one of the things I wanted to talk about with business, it comes to the Tormach and business and customer service, is we have no problem when we work with customers saying what we can't do. I'm not worried about someone criticizing me. I sort of still tell people, like, I'm not a machinist. I've never had any formal training. I've never apprenticed. Yeah. So I don't have a problem that some people, you know, I have no problem telling a customer we can't do that, or what'll happen is we'll do smaller runs for people, and then we'll eventually say, look, when you're going to quote these at X quantity, we'll help you go somewhere else, because I will lose that customer either way, but if I lose them by actually helping them find the right long-term solution, you've engendered a huge amount of goodwill. They will usually come back to you for the smaller stuff anyway, and it's kind of like the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's helping.
Yeah.
And we both, you know, I see that in you watching your videos, and I know that about myself, is we're trying to do the right thing, we're trying to share, we're trying to teach the world our mistakes.
Yeah. And
what we're learning, because it's all a learning process. And if we can help increase that learning time any amount, then good on us. I mean, it's fun. And one of the best things about my videos is the comments that I get, because I'll make a mistake, I'll say something about the video, and then in the comments, guys are like, okay, try this next time. So I go and try it, and holy cow, it worked, because some guy who works at Tesla told me how to do it right. And literally, that's the case. I have friends now that work at some of the biggest companies in the world because they watch my videos. And Tormach started watching my videos before I bought the machine. And it's like, it's all this. The minute I started turning the camera around and being like, hi, I'm John Grimsmo. It's not just, this is the camera looking at the parts I'm making. That's not very exciting. It's factual, but it's not personality. And as we know with reality TV these days, people like people, as good or bad as the show may be. But when you two, there was a point when you turned the camera around, and we different times, but we both had that same effect when your viewership starts going up, people start knowing you. It's like you're friends now with all your followers. And that made a huge turning point in my YouTube career, but also in my following in general, and my sales, my business. And now I've grown to the point where I can make pretty much anything, and my customers will buy it for almost any price that I want to charge because of Tormach.
Can you talk about, have you advertised, or what role Tormach and you?
I've done very little. You mean market advertising, like product or what?
Yeah, like does Grimsmo, like how do you sell?
We don't advertise. We have our YouTube channel. I spent very little time on forums because I was so interested in machining and learning, and I used my YouTube as sharing, so I didn't share much on the forums. The knife forums were kind of boring to me because I'm more a creator, a manufacturer than I am a knife collector. My knife that I carry that I made is the most expensive knife I own because I can't afford all these other guys' knives. I have tools to buy. So we don't market, we don't do ads in magazines. We go to all the big knife shows because people like to see us, and since we have the YouTube videos, people have a connection with us and they love seeing us at the show. And just like you guys here, like, I've seen you on YouTube, and I get that at the knife shows too. And Eric gets it in the bathroom at knife shows, and guys come up and be like, "What's up? I've seen you on YouTube. Just give me a second, let me wash my hands." And then, but yeah, like, YouTube is awesome, just for all of above reasons.
Hey John, NYCNC, how has that changed your business? Because obviously you're in a very different place than you were 3 years ago.
Yeah, some people have asked me that. I probably should have thought of a better answer to say than I don't know. I stopped being involved in the daily operations of this business a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, and I kind of like took some time off. And then, as I think most of you guys know, I moved from New York back to Ohio about a year ago. And we do sort of three things. We do the videos, we do some job shop work, and then we do some of our own products. I'd like to do more of our own products, but there's something about me. I think everyone in here may be the same way, but like I get this huge personal satisfaction out of the trifecta of knowing I can make parts, knowing I can make money making parts, and like being able to be a part of helping it sounds corny, but like helping other people get their products made. It's really cool. So it's probably not the most profitable thing because it's really hard to scale job shop stuff, but that's also where the videos have sort of limitless scale in terms of the audience, and that's why when we can do a job shop job that we can also make into a video, it's a win for us.
Yeah. And our businesses differ a little bit because you have more of the job shop jobs, whereas I am a product-oriented company. I make one knife with lots of options, lots of designs, and lots of tweaks. But at the end of the day, I mean, as he said, we have the ability to think of something, to design it, to machine it, to finish it, and to use it, all in the same day if you want. And it's such an amazing power. And we both started out in our garages. And these are the machines that can fit in your garage and can let you do pretty much anything. I mean, these Tormachs can make pretty much anything. I cut titanium all day long, which everybody says is such a hard material to machine. But it's like, I can do it. Why can't anybody else?
It's another point too. I was totally illegal in New York suburbs, like with my Tormach. I was violating zoning. It was hard to get freight deliveries. I couldn't get raw materials. I don't care,
Yeah.
But that was, the Tormach was the right machine, period. But in terms of the garage, 220 was fine, but I want to deal with trying to do a three-phase and weight of, yeah.
And I mean, on top of a host of other things, but the cost of ownership of these more expensive machines is so much more expensive. Like I just replaced the spindle on my Tormach, mostly just because it's rusting on the outside and it looked ugly in videos. So I bought the $500 replacement spindle and put it in like an hour, and I did a video, but I haven't finished it yet. And all of a sudden, the bearings sound a little bit better because they've had 3 years of heavy use on them. But I'm like, I just replaced the spindle for $500, and I've heard on a Haas it's $5,000, on a Morisaki it's $20,000, and here you're having replacement parts you can put in yourself. You don't need a service guy to come in to charge you $1,000 just to say hi, and you're expected to do it yourself because it's like a high-end do-it-yourself machine, just the pride of being able to make anything.
I think I forget that.
Yeah, you forget that. You get caught up in business and life and work and making money that you forget the passion sometimes behind it. But I think with the YouTube channels, it keeps us grounded because we get to share that passion and show it and like remember why we're doing this because we're sharing that fact with everybody else, you know? Yeah, okay, question. Let's start with a question. You.
I'd like to hear from both of y'all on two different subjects. One is when you're using the Tormach to make money, do you go to carbide end mills by default because you can run them faster?
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, what have y'all found out as far as the ideal coolant system rather
Okay.
than the mist, the trickle flood, or the aggressive flood?
Okay.
And lastly, I have heard on other channels that 3-flute end mills are far more stable when you're doing percolation compared to 4 or 2-flute. And the stresses on the end mill
This one's all you, John.
are
I got
a
this
lot less. I'm wondering if either one of y'all have experience with that.
Yeah, I can answer all of those, and you can tie in. I'll go first. Okay, the first part was carbide. I've always used carbide end mills. I never really started on high-speed steel. I know a lot of manual machinists are sort of conditioned to high-speed steel, but since I've always been interested in CNC, I've had carbide from the beginning. So
Insert or solid?
both.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly solid carbide end mills and some insert end mills. I get most of my stuff from Lakeshore Carbide. He came to your event, Carl.
Yeah.
Awesome
I gotta talk
guy.
about that too in a second.
Yeah. I've had lunch with him. He's an awesome guy. And cheap end mills in stock on the site. So carbide end mills are great. They do break instead of deflect or bend, but that's just cost of business. So yeah, carbide end mills, and the coating depends on what you're trying to do. I do mostly steel and titanium, so TAILN, whatever it's called, coating for most of my stuff. For aluminum, either uncoated or the ZRN, whatever, that works fine. For coolant, I'm a big flood coolant fan. I've always used the flood coolant, and currently I've upgraded my, that's where we differ, it's okay.
Would you repeat that? I didn't catch what you said.
Which part? All of it?
The aggressive flow?
Yeah, I use flood coolant, and I've actually upgraded my Tormach cooling system. I've got this big Rubbermaid tub about this big that gets me 3 times more volume because it does evaporate, and then when it runs out, you run out of coolant. And I have like 8-hour runs sometimes, and I don't want to run out of coolant. So I've got these big Rubbermaid tubs with a Home Depot pond pump, a 1/6 horsepower pond pump that just garden hoses coolant at this thing. And I've got a couple extra nozzles hooked up, and it just clears the chips. It keeps it cool, especially with titanium and stainless. You cannot let it get hot, otherwise you'll just burn it and destroy everything. But I've got the full enclosure, so you need the full enclosure to do this extra horsepower pump, more flow stuff. But yeah, flood coolant is definitely messier, but I recently switched to Qualichem coolant, which is a very high-end coolant. The Tesla guy that I mentioned before told me to use it. So I'm like, okay, done. If it's good enough for you, it's good enough for me. And it's fantastic. I mean, literally my parts are shinier just by switching coolant. And my tools are lasting longer. So little changes like actual coolant quality can make a big impact on something. And since I run production parts, I have this consistency where I can notice changes. And it takes a while to get to that point where you actually notice, changes. And then to answer your last question, 3-flute, I like to think of 3-flute as an aluminum thing. I don't do much aluminum work. So for me, it's all 4-flute or 5-flute or 6-flute end mills for stainless and titanium, because you want to make a thinner chip and you want to evacuate it as quickly as possible. Whereas with a 3-flute or 2-flute end mill, you can take a bigger cut in aluminum and it doesn't plug up the end mill. So with aluminum, 3-flute I think is good. And to answer your actual question about 3-flute versus 2-flute is it deflects differently, like it vibrates differently because there's 3. And 5-flute is the same way, and 7-flute is the same way. So it apparently reduces harmonics in the end mill, and I'm not an expert at all that, but I try to learn it all.
Some of that goes back to like variable fluid, and
Right.
a lot of this stuff I think it's really cool to see how much the stakes have been raised on like questions like this that are getting asked by, I'll say laymen. And I've become friends with Carl at Lakeshore Carbide, who makes great tooling. Honestly, I don't know if his tooling is better, but I like him a lot,
Yeah.
and he's been good to the community. So he and I have actually done a video series that we've been scripting it, we haven't filmed it.
He's been trying to get me to do that for 2 years.
Yeah, on like, we're gonna call it like kindergarten to 8th grade for tooling. We're gonna try to
Nice.
walk through in terms that I understand, not journeyman tooling guy. What is what? Chip load, SFM, variable flute, aluminum, all that stuff to try to break some of it down.
That's good. Yeah, I've been wanting to do it, but it's busy.
I
Life is
have
busy.
a lot of free time.
Oh yeah, you have a lot of free
And then
time.
New York John, you had a different view on flood than
Right.
Canadian John.
But it's not because it's not at all because it's better. The truth is I've never once run flood coolant on a mill, so I have no experience. We started with the Trico, which I would really just buy a fog buster instead, because I didn't think I was going to use my mill all the time in the beginning, and that was true. And flood coolant, like leaking, getting
It's got more maintenance.
yeah, and I was just like, and now we don't, for two reasons. The videos, it's nice to not have the flood coolant in the way,
sucks.
and I love high PSI air blast. In my humble opinion, coolant does three things. It lubricates, it cools, and it clears chips. For us, clearing chips is the biggest part of that, and high pressure airstream is a lot more attainable than high PSI flood.
And as most of your work, aluminum or steel, because John's talking about steel and titanium.
I probably cut like 70-80% aluminum, but I will cut most grades of steel very comfortably and competently, in my opinion, now, with no problem with the.
With the car.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And are you primarily a carbide user or high-speed steel user?
I
Or
have not.
paint?
I have never purchased a new high-speed steel tool that I've been
Yeah.
aware of in the last few years. We're not. So here's the thing. There's merits to. We'll talk about this in the video series. But carbide is technically less. We'll use high-speed steel on certain plastics if we're cutting that. But we use carbide even though we don't push it to the limit like carbide may want to be, because the stiffness is generally a good thing. We're doing a lot more of the adaptive, full depth, thinner width of cut. But the Tormach compared to a $250,000 machine is going to be harder on tool life. But we're not. I don't factor in tool cost to my margin. I'm not that competitive. Like, I'm not doing runs where, for job shops, that matters. If you start breaking tools too soon, you will cut your margin out. And so I guess one of the questions we should probably talk about is, how do you guys make money with Tormachs? And you can do it through job shop stuff, or you can do it through products. But I do not think, that was end mills last me a pretty darn long time.
Yeah. Especially doing various work.
Mm-hmm.
They're always there.
Yep.
And I go through end mills fairly regularly, but because of production, I know that this 1/16th end mill will last me between 9 and 18 handles before it just kicks up a really big burr, and I know it'll break like the next handle, so then I'll remove it or just let it break. Or I get to know the tool life a little bit, and I watch, because we have such a high standard for our product, because we charge such a ridiculously high price. We have to be very clear about having chips in our end mills, because that'll leave a crappy finish around the outside, which is more finishing work for my brother. And then all these little things. So I'm sometimes replacing tools earlier than they need to be, but because of a chip, it doesn't look as good. Things like that.
First of all, thank you for all your work on the videos. I would guess that that's one reason Tormach has sold a lot of machines.
Tell them that.
Relative to that, keeping your bottom line, how much do you see a trend where you're going to do less video work to explain things in the future? But it takes a hit, right? How long does it take you to do a video? And in that regard, are you shifting away from things like, say, ScrewCam toward SolidWorks or other solutions where we're trying to follow you guys in terms of the solutions?
Right.
I would personally like to see more ScrewCam 9 stuff. Instead of just glossing over it and getting to the machine part.
You want to start?
I mean, ScrewCam was great. I like SolidWorks plus HSM, but that's not fair, because SolidWorks is $5,000 plus $1,200 a year. You shouldn't have to hit that hurdle to have a lot of fun with your Tormach, which is why I now love Fusion 360. I don't like the CAD quite as much as SolidWorks. That's partly my own investment in SolidWorks, but the cam is stupid good. Like really, I love it. So I will do, if you guys need stuff on ScrewCam, I've tried to be pretty responsive to videos out there on how to do stuff on that, but I will probably switch more to Fusion 360 or HSM inside of SolidWorks is actually the same cam. What was your first question? Oh, videos?
Videos taking a hit on your, like, will you stop doing videos because you're busy?
I love doing videos. It's like my reward to myself. We're pretty fast at doing them. Next week will be 52 weeks of the Wednesday widget. I will admit that it's been kind of a grind to do a video every week for a year straight. We're thinking about, and videos have changed. I think now what I want to do is more 4 to 9 minute specific instructional type videos, and then periodically twice a month have more project videos. I think from a reality TV standpoint, people are much more interested in seeing projects come to life. I still think there's a huge application on YouTube for how to make your Tormach or CAD or CAM do something you want it to do.
Yeah. And from me, I mean, anybody who's following me has probably noticed a hit in videos in the past year, just because I do get busy. And the videos are a side thing for me. John focuses a lot on videos and he puts a lot of production quality into them. I'm just like, hey, I'm John, let's do this. So I don't always have time to do that. And luckily about a year ago or more, I outsourced my video editing. So I don't have to do it anymore, because that would take me like hours per video. And I'm like, this makes me no money. Why am I doing this? I'll pay a guy. I have this awesome guy in the Philippines now that does all my video editing. And he's great. And so I just put files on my Google Drive and he edits them, and in a couple days they're back and they're perfect and done. I don't have to work with that anymore. So I have a personal love for doing the videos and sharing and just bringing people along with the cool stuff that I'm working on, because I'm so passionate about it, and I want to share it, and not just to promote my business, because I'm not making advertisements. I'm making like, this is the cool thing I'm working on. If you want to see it, keep watching. So I do want to keep doing videos, and spending the time to do more tutorial videos, like you mentioned, does take extra effort and extra time and planning and all that. They end up being better videos, but they just take more work. So you have to balance, where your benefits and your time is most valuable.
I'll say too, I want to say thank you. I'll be honest, I am able to spend more time making videos because Tormach sponsors the channel. I'm not going to fib about that. So I want to say thank you to Tormach for sponsoring both of us, because it does matter, and it's made our videos better. And I'm a capitalist. I'm not a greedy person, I don't think. So it's great. It lets us do something we love to do.
Yeah.
A quick follow-up then. What is your CAD CAM strategy then for the next year or so? What tools are you using? SolidWorks, CAD, Fusion 360?
We both own legitimate SolidWorks licenses.
Yeah.
HSM comes for free with that, and I will do more Fusion 360 because of its critical mass. And I wish Autodesk wasn't here, because they're going to think this is like a shill, but the resources they have put behind Fusion 360 are mind-blowing. You can screen record inside the software, upload it, and have results from their community in minutes.
Really?
It's incredible.
Wow. So I'm on SolidWorks as well with the 3D HSM Works package, which is the top tier package. It lets me do all my 3D machining like I do on my handles and a lot of the detail work and stuff. It's very much like Fusion 360, but it's just the top tier version, whereas Fusion 360 is more subscription based, more available to the market, and newer, I think. It's based on the HSM Works kernel, they call it. But I love it. HSM Works blows my mind, and I absolutely love it.
Just one last quick follow-up. Do you see PathPilot, and especially its conversational mill and lathe work, as being a huge boost to what you're doing now, or is it just sort of?
I use the lathe conversational all the time. I don't use the mill conversational because if you guys watch my videos, I'm really good at getting mill CAD CAM done really quickly. So that's just my go-to there.
And I have PathPilot on my lathe, but I don't have it on my mill yet. But I love it on the lathe because it just works. Whereas on my mill, I've still got Mach 3, and there's bugs and there's problems, and at least I know all the workarounds around them, which took me a long time to learn. So the mill is consistent, so I don't want to change it because it just works. But yeah, I love PathPilot, and I think it's definitely the right choice for Tormach. So
Go.
There's been several points, probably. The most recent of which was a month ago when we got our new workshop. And I've always worked out of home, and now for many reasons, I'm out of capacity. Like, we have such a demand for our product, we cannot make enough of them. And our income is limited because we can only make so many. So we need to expand. So we got a bigger facility, which is an 8-minute drive from home, and I'm now working out of home, which is kind of sucky because I love being at home. I've got 2 kids, love working from home. I love, if I need to go out in the middle of the night and start something, that's fine. And I often wake up, super early in the morning, set up a run to go, and then come back inside and make my breakfast and take my kids to school, and then come back and the machine's still running. And it's like, yes, I've been making money that whole time. And then to go back even more, I'm sure there's been several points where it's like, do we do this and make a big change, a big decision, and invest money, or do we stay where we are, or just not do it at all? And of course, those are only decisions you can make yourself and get advice from anybody. But yeah, of course, you have to make these decisions, and they're big and scary, and you have to weigh them. Like, is this what I want to do? Is there profit margins in this? Can I physically do this? And it's great to think big and to strive to do whatever you want, because I've always looked at everything and said, I could do that. And it might take me 6 months to figure it out, but I did it. And I'm sure a lot of people out here are kind of the same way, because you're at a CNC tool event, so you're do-it-yourselfers. You want to be able to have the skill to do it. So
I'm a bootstrapping entrepreneur. Like I worked my day job because I wanted to be able to afford to buy things like the Tormach with less risk. So that was like a no-brainer to me. The big decision, I'm very grateful. I have a very supportive wife.
Me too.
But the big decision for me was I actually worked my day job until we left New York a year ago. So I was working ridiculous hours between the 2 businesses. But I don't know, I like working. I would be exhausted from a day job and get home, and I had no problem working more. I now have a child as well, and that really does change things. But I waited. I was fortunate enough to wait and forego that steady income stream after I had used my Tormach and my skills to have the confidence and have created a legitimate business with not taking, to me, I don't have the risk appetite to have quit my job without the confidence or experience and then taken on debt to buy a machine and sort of said, I can do this. So some people could do that. I couldn't.
Yeah, there's certain risk lines you have to balance, because you shouldn't just quit your job and buy a Tormach and be like, okay, now what do I do? You need a product, you need an idea, you need work lined up.
Yeah.
You have to run this as a business, and there's millions of business books out there that, sure, they're not about machining, but they're about building small businesses. And I'm starting to read a lot of that. I'm learning a lot about lean manufacturing, because you have to be lean in order to make any money, because wasted time anywhere is just killing your profit margins. So I'm learning a lot about that, and right now I'm trying to grow myself as a businessman, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, because we have the following, thankfully, to continue the business. And we can grow from here, and we can do, I don't know what we can do, but luckily.
Books are great, really books are great,
Yeah.
but just do it.
Yeah.
I don't care if you have to go to a makerspace, if you have to buy a non-Tormach machine, just do it.
Agreed.
Both of you guys, what was kind of like your lowest point, and then how did you kind of work?
Ooh, a hard one.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it. Gritty. Who wants to grit first?
You.
Okay, fine. Lowest point. Well, one more big thing, going back to your question about high risks, was my wife supported me for many years while I learned all this stuff and tried to find my way in life and try to make the car parts and get the Tormach and all that. She worked up until our son was born 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So that was a big decision, was for her to quit work and for me to take on all of the responsibility. And that was around the same time my brother came on, and I had to support him as well. So it's like big stuff. But anyway, so big, scary.
Well, that was a follow-up question.
Yeah.
How do you deal with kids?
Okay, well, what was your first one?
The first one was your lowest point. And
Lowest point.
How you kind of rationalize through it to persevere.
Before knives were my saving grace, because before knives, I was struggling to make money. My wife supported me. We made just enough to get by. We had our first daughter. I was trying to create a business somehow with my Grizzly machines. I did custom aluminum anodizing on the side. I was anodizing paintball guns, making $80 here and there. And it was just enough to support the garage, basically, to make no extra money. And that was a really low point for me. And then knives came along, and I'm like, holy crap, I can sell a knife for $500? Are you kidding me? Yeah. So I started doing that. I invested, that was a big decision. I went to the first knife show in Vegas that I thought of. That was like 2 months later, and started getting a lot of interest from the work that I was doing. So, I mean,
Do you think that was the catalyst in the knife interest, is going to the shows?
yes, especially as a beginner, as a learner in the knife world, going to the shows is like being on speed, because you're like, oh, I want to make a knife like that. I want to make a knife like that. Oh, look at this detail. Oh, look at that detail. I don't like this knife. This knife feels like crap. And you just see all this stuff, and it's like rapid fire, and you have to take notes to be able to understand any of it. But yeah, the shows are huge. I mean, at this point, I've been doing this for 4 years in the knives, and I get less and less from the shows because, not to say that I'm at a high level or anything, but compared to the knives that I see, I'm like, these aren't as good as mine. From a technical machinist aspect, like my knives have a more technical feel and accuracy than all this other stuff. So, but yeah, low points certainly before knives, and since then it's been pretty good, steady. Like, so, any low points?
Honestly, no. I never put myself. I tried to make sure I never set myself up to like let myself down or my wife down. I mean, it was not a small decision when I told my wife, we bought this new house, you're never going to park in the garage. When I first bought my tag, I had this engineer in Colorado who used Pro Engineer, very old Ford guy, who I sort of told him, I'm going to buy. I mean, I didn't even know what Fastenal was. Like, I was a Manhattan kid as an adult, and he told me not to. He was in no uncertain terms. You will fail. You're not that smart at that.
I've heard that.
And I was kind of like, maybe you're right, but I'm going to fail on my own terms, not on your terms. And so I'm not trying to make it sound like that was some motivational kick in the pants. I was going to do it either way. But I remember him saying, you can't do this. And back then, there was a chance I would have failed, especially if I didn't know I was going to like it as much as I did. I really didn't. I thought it was just a tool for me to learn how to speak with machine shops and engineers, and then just put that tool in my tool set and kind of move on. But then, honestly, since then, to this day, I will actually say yes to some jobs. I said yes to a job before I hopped on a plane here to make a part that I don't know how I'm going to do yet. And they're not lows, but that's just kind of how I just figured it out. I've just factually, I've never had a part we made returned, and I accepted a job, and then the customer later told me the tolerances were unrealistic, and I then declined and refunded his money. But otherwise, I just kind of bite off more than I can chew and chew. Sure.
Did either of you run into like zoning issues running out of your garage or basement?
Not me, no.
I was illegal in New York, but I never got caught. Piss on these people who are going to tell me not to run a small business out of my house. So sorry, I have no sympathy for that.
That's squishing small business, period. So it's possible that you could get screwed for it, but I don't know. Don't get caught.
Back there,
Or is there anything that like you would have done differently? I mean, full spectrum from business, tooling, machines. Like, what were the things that, like, looking back, yeah, I should have done it this way or something like that?
I'll answer one thing quickly. Don't get too hung up in decisions. I think too many decisions can paralyze you.
Absolutely.
That's why I'm kind of like, just do it, damn it. Just do it. Like, whatever you want to do, be smart about it. Go ahead, I'll think.
Yeah, I recently heard a thing that said, imagine you only have 100 decisions in the day. And throughout the day, you're wasting all these decisions. What am I going to have for breakfast? What am I going to wear? What am I going to do this? So this guy said to, eliminate all your decisions. Always have the same thing for breakfast. Always wear similar clothes or whatever. Just to eliminate some of those decisions so you can actually spend more time on more important things. But, okay, what was the main question again?
Like, looking back, what would
you
have done differently?
I have felt, sounds like, I have felt so, I love the fact that we can do so much in our shop. Tumble, deburr, turn, mill, CAD, CAM. I have tried, if any of you emailed me, I try to actually email back really quickly to almost everybody. I have to realize I can't do all that. I have to be more willing to spend money outsourcing. I've actually stopped checking my email. I'll check my email every 4 hours instead of every 20 seconds.
Yeah. And I can't keep up with emails either, and it's terrible. I feel really guilty, and I have all this stress about not being able to keep up with emails because I want to connect with everybody who emails me, but I just don't have the time to do it. But as far as what would I do different, I wish I had more business skill going into it. I wish I spend more time learning how to run a business, learning how to manage money, learning how to manage people, because I think that would have accelerated where I am now, I think. Whereas I spent all my effort on making the best product that I possibly could, regardless of anything else. I didn't care how long it took. I didn't care how many tools I broke. I didn't care, what anybody else was saying about it. And our design, our knife design, had a lot of flack in the beginning just because, I don't know, a lot of people thought it was weird looking. It was funky looking, but I stuck with it anyway, and now it's like this grail knife for people. One guy's got 9 of them, and he bought them all secondhand for almost twice the price that I sell them for. And I'm like, what is going on here? But yeah, so I wish I had more business skill, which is why I'm trying to learn so much about that now to proceed.
Failing fast is important too.
Yeah, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah, it's fine to fail as long as you fail quickly.
Yeah,
Don't
learn
spend. No, seriously, time is. I mean, he and I started this at the same time. We're the same age, and I can't spend 6 months on something that's not going to work out.
You're talking about being agile.
Well, like,
Agile and lean, there's some place in those that,
yeah, it's okay to
you got to turn it, learn from it, move along, turn it, move along.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I certainly spent like months designing something, whereas now I have to do it in days or less because I just can't spend that much time on it.
Yep.
You guys are both similar in a lot of ways. Your social skills are high. Obviously, your technical skills are good. You speak well. Your business sense you've talked about. What was the most important thing to you in terms of the success that you've achieved so far? What was the one thing that stands out?
For me, it was. God, this sounds stupid, but it was the attitude I have is because I have no sense of entitlement about where I am. I'm self-taught, learned from the internet, which is a pretty scary thing.
Yeah.
And that's why I've always felt like giving back. And some people call us teachers. I don't think of myself as a teacher, but I think what we do has created a lot of education and awareness in this growing industry. So, having that attitude of, if I had grown up and my dad was a tool and die maker, I would probably be a lot, and I was good at what I did, I'd have a very different mentality about it.
I think I don't know, the only one thing I can come up with is thinking that I can tackle any challenge. I'm not afraid to try things. Not just fail, but I'm not afraid to do it. Just like I can do that, I can make that. I can whatever. I built my first CNC machine from a manual machine. I can do that, sure. So having it's not confidence, it's more like stupidity just to think that you can do anything. But
You can know too much.
Yeah.
Like you literally can overthink things and become paralyzed.
Paralysis by analysis.
Right.
And considering using Tormach in a business, the lathe and the mill, how do you cost those machines out? Not with special fixturing and tooling and so on, but just in general, how would you advise people to cost out those machines? And also, how do you factor in QC kind of operations, if they're even factored in?
We did a video literally called "How I Quote CNC Work." There's a spreadsheet. It's a 45-minute video. It's the only video in which I really sit down and ramble, or not ramble, but talk at length. I would encourage you to watch that from my end.
Mm-hmm. Is that what you're asking? How do you charge for work?
Yeah.
Well, honestly, with my knives, I value my knives based on other people's price,
Right.
Based on the market. If I said, okay, this takes me 20 minutes to machine, so I'm going to charge this much for that, then my price would not be compatible with the market. So I'm like, okay, the market knives are $500 to $900 I'm going to come in kind of low on that and make a $500 knife, and that's my price. And then options jack it up from there. I think my record is $1,400 for a knife.
And I do actually the same thing, which some people have a distaste for, but I will charge the same part. I would charge an artist a different price than I would a university professor or a corporate budget person, because it's not to me it's never what it costs you to make, it's what it's worth to them. And sometimes you need to be willing to do it for less, sometimes more. Brian?
Thank you both for all of what you do, your time and input into this business. I guess my question would be probably more for John Grimsmo. We were able to buy the product based on commitment for some parts, and it just made it a no-brainer. I've got 3 boys coming up, and this is why it's directed at you. I've got 3 boys coming up, and I kind of like to keep that approach and give them something to do, try to build into them over the years a desire to create product and do something with it. And so my question to you is, working with your brother, and of course it's a family business, as it is, has that been something that means a lot to you? Has that added value that you both see in putting the time in, working together?
Yes.
That's what it desires for myself.
Right, absolutely. And I see that in other family businesses, is they have this cultural awareness among their customers that this is a family business, I'm going to support them. So in working with Eric, he came on with me 3 years ago. He quit his job at a hotel, used to live in Seattle, so he moved out here with me and lived in our basement for 2 years, and we grew the business together. You know, I had a year head start in the knife world, so I got it all set up and I designed the knife and everything. But working with him, I'll be honest, going from being self-employed to having an employee was difficult, because I not only had to keep myself busy, I had to keep him busy, and I had to pay him. And it was almost like twice the work for me now, because I'm delegating and I wasn't used to doing that. So that was a bit of an issue until we sort of split the business and said, I'm going to do all the machining and he's going to do all the finishing. So I give him a stack of finished parts and the knife flips and it locks, and then he does everything else. He does all the hand polishing and sharpening and deburring and tumbling and anodizing and heat treating and all that stuff. So once he had his own expertise and he could take ownership in those things, I don't touch them anymore. I trust that he can do it. He has this value that he can take pride in. And he takes a lot of pride in his work, and he spends way too long doing his work. Because it's like, yeah, gotta be perfect. This little scratch, you see that? No. It's right here, you see it? No, here's the loop. You see the scratch? Okay. So, yeah, try to multiply the pride and make sure everybody's aware of it. Something like that.
Andy just said one more question. I will say though, like, I really do try to email everybody back. So if there's a question you guys couldn't get to, shoot. You guys know how to get, I'm sure, get a hold of both of us.
Yeah.
Or grab us today or tonight at the bar thing. One more question.
Yeah. Honestly, I haven't put a lot of effort into figuring out liability. I mean, if somebody gets hurt or injured or worse with my knife, I don't know what would happen. And more in the firearm industry, I don't know if that's different or not, but you have your hurdles to go
The
through.
long conversation. There's certain implicit user requirements when they're dealing with a gun or knife. There's an implicit knowledge you're dealing with something dangerous, but we have a general insurance policy for a machine shop. It's not that big.
And we do too.
Yeah. Right. The big concern is if like somebody were to prove that you personally designed something that was designed in such a way that it created harm, and making knives isn't generally speaking going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's man's oldest tool. It's a pocket knife. If you hurt yourself, you're stupid. That's what I tell people. And honestly, like, we make sharp objects, and Eric makes them stupid sharp. We cut ourselves more on burrs and on like random stuff and fixtures and pinch ourselves than we do cut ourselves on actual knives, because we have a little bit of common sense, and we just don't cut ourselves. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, you too. And any other questions? We're here. Talk our ear off. We've got parts up here too if you want to come see.
Oh yeah, fixture. Oh, you're doing that.
Yeah, I'll do the nice thing.